So you think about, I'm going to take this to a deeper level because I was just talking about right here in our backyard, a cell tower builder. So they've been a client of mine for 20 some odd years. And here's how they came to me. So I do it like with you, do a lot of speaking engagements. So I'm doing a speaking engagement in Tampa. And I'm one of about 5 people speaking at this half-day conference. And I talk about audits. And I talk about how you have to make sure you get them shored up. You have to be prepared for them, all of that stuff. And at the break, this guy comes walking out and he said, I have to be a CFO of a company. And we're in the cell tower business. And we owe $650,000 on a WorkComp audit. He goes, can you look at it? So we did. And so I went and met with the owners of the company. CFO was involved. And I said, well, tell me what's happened so far. He goes, well, the carrier came back in and re-audited again. And they said that 650 was right. The agent came back in and said, that's right. You owe the money. So here's where my skeptical mind goes. Of course, the carrier wants $650,000. The agent's probably making 10% commission. He's getting ready to get $65,000 little bump, right, in his commissions. And they both said it was wrong. So we took it over and we went back through the entire audit. Now, what these guys do is they build cell towers in places. So, you've got a high rated code for building these things, or there's already a tower there and they're just running lines up. They're changing it from a 3G to a 4G so they're just doing that. So we literally went back down and broke down every project. Oh, by the way, they'd signed a promissory note to pay $100,000 a month for the next 7 months to pay off the, Jesus. And they said this would have this is a second generation company, by the way. They said we would have gone bankrupt. We'd already signed it, and they'd already made one payment of $100,000. They go, I don't know how we're going to do it. It took us I said, don't make any more payments. We're stopping that till we get this thing complete. We're going to dispute this. And we knocked $450,000 off that. They owed $200,000. And by the way, carrier said it twice, you owe the money. Agent said, you owe the money.
Right. You still got it out.
And what I always call fascinating about this, I go, these guys have, usually you don't get a halo over your head for very long. It's kind of like, what have you done for me lately? But these guys still remember that, right? The brothers that own it.
Yeah, of course.
And so, but it's one of those stories that just because they say it's right doesn't mean it. That's why, a lot of times you got to bring a third party in to review everything. Just make sure.
I think it's just the fight. You keep up the fight no matter what.
It is.
I mean, that's what almost everyone who has the means to fight does. You have to have the means to fight. Now, the reason that they get a guy like you, if they had to pay you a fee, right? A separate fee. You know that $650 sitting there, you're going to get a piece of that action. But there was a fee. A lot of people couldn't afford to go after somebody without these contingency fees.
Back then, I didn't charge them a fee. Back then, they said, you fix this, you're going to have us for a long time as a client. And I've had these guys for 20 some, maybe 25 years now. So
that was your fee. Duke's going to grab onto your leg and never let go.
You know what? And you don't keep clients because you do something 25 years ago. You do it. So right now, they have an audit problem. So they've started this. The guy that owns this company is very, very entrepreneurial. I mean, there's not an idea that he doesn't like. So he's got a lot of businesses. So he opened up an HVAC company, right? AC, that's air conditioning company, right?
Right.
So he opens it up a couple of years ago. And I was asking him, I go, I was looking at the notes. He called, they called in the office and, Wendy in our office says, okay, HVAC is all going to be in the air conditioning code. Mm-hmm. So I asked Jimmy, is this first? I go, Jimmy, how much refrigeration work do you do? Because there's AC and there's refrigeration. Right. And he goes, man, almost all of it now. There's a refrigeration code. That you're not using. So we're going back, because it only started a year ago, and I'm fixing that. And we now have the code on, and he's running about $1 million in payroll a month in this. So he's got a lot of payroll, so it's gotten pretty big.
Right.
So it's that stuff where you got to always ask questions and just make sure. So when you're involved in the audit, you always go, are you doing anything different? You have any employees doing anything different? Because if you do, we got to know about it. Because if I'm not asking, they don't think about it. And Jimmy never thought about, okay, now we're doing this.
Man,
So
these guys are too busy.
one of your guys in your class from Riviera Beach, from your contractor school, called me. This is probably 6 years ago. He was a refrigeration contractor, and he was in the AC code, air conditioning code. And so when you look at the air conditioning code, and he looked at it, he goes, this is where we should be. Because it says, if your refrigeration units, right? So that's your ice cream, they're
Right.
is tied to your AC unit, then you're in the AC code, which is a lot higher. Well, I'm thinking, who ties their refrigeration unit? Your air conditioner goes out, you got melted ice cream. Who does that anymore? And he said, you're right. So they didn't. So he was all refrigeration. Mm-hmm. Carrier would not change the code. I'm in there on premium recovery. Would not change the code. Bring NCCI in. Say, bring them in. So I bring them in. They interview. And it's funny, the owner of the company goes, Duke, I don't want it to be worse. I don't want this code to double from what I go, it can't. You're in the worst it is. There's nothing higher than what you're paying. So we ended up changing it all back, going back, and we got them a couple $100,000.
They're afraid. This is the psychology of all this. People don't want to change because they like the devil they're with. They don't want a new devil. They're not sure what's going to happen if you get involved.
That's true. That's right. But look, I'm not going to screw it up. I can only tell you that.
I got one.
I don't want. I'm not going to look. If I say, look, you're in a gray area, let's keep our mouth shut.
Yeah.
Let's go on. So, but it's so rare that I run into that. Usually they are getting money back. And sometimes people go, well, how many times do you get money back? Or it all depends. So I like to work on like bigger stuff, stuff that's $250,000
Sure.
But in Clearwater, here's another one, a metal fabrication shop, right? So steel fabrication, all that. So when I got called into it, it's been there for a long time, this company has. And it looks like and there's a code for that, for steel fabrication. And so I'm looking at the website. And so I ask them this question. I go, who's your number one competitor doing this stuff? And he told me. And the person he told me happened to be my client. Mm-hmm. And they do conveyor systems. This is the steel fab they're doing. They're building these conveyors. Well, that rate is 60% lower than what they've been paying. They've been paying $100,000 a year for workers' comp. They're now paying $40,000 a year for workers' comp. And now think about it. You got the carrier loss control person that's out there looking at it. He sees the code. He never asked the question. You've got the auditor that's coming out there that, quite honestly, they just don't know. You got the agent who's been there. He never drills down on it. And I start picking up on it as I'm looking on his website and seeing what he's producing. I knew what he was. I just had to find out who his competitor was, because I can then, like I said, it was my client, so I knew what the code was. But it's that kind of stuff, and it's $100,000 in premium. So,
it's a lot of money.
It's always it's EBITDA.